think everybody in the room knows me, so I'm not really gonna give you all that spiel. But um, I just want to talk just a little bit about, more than anything, about the why and the how of this new book, The Model City. So um, most of y'all already know that my favorite author is Rick Bragg, and when he has these kinds of events, the thing he always says is he'd rather talk with you than talk at you. And so I'm only going to talk at you for a little bit. And then I'd rather, as usual, like we do for 4 hours on Saturdays, I'd rather talk with you. So if y'all have got questions at the end, a lot of y'all already know just about everything that's going to be in this book. But anything y'all want to talk about, we'll talk about it. Who in here has seen that photo? I'm expecting every hand. Yeah, everybody's seen that photo. So 1937 image shows the construction progress of the project from around the Brentwood Avenue area, Rock Park area, looking back kind of north towards what now includes Cahaba Elementary. And I really like this image just because, I mean, it's nearly 100 years old now, but it shows what used to be. It's going to be so hard to see it. I know we can see it in our blown up image that's printed here, but near the top right corner where that land is really dark, there's still a big old barn there. So I really like this image because it shows a lot of what was and a whole lot of what was becoming, and what a large part of what we know even still now in 2025. And that becoming, this what was farmland, what was covered in slag, especially to the north of this image, that's what this book is all about. What it was and what it became, and how it was formed, how it led to what we know is not only the historic Cahaba Project, but also Trussville today. I'm going to make y'all sit through a video for like 4 minutes. And so this video, I just wanted to show you a quick video. This was, I'd spent, I don't know, 6-8 hours in the archives room one day at the library next door. January of 2024. And I don't know what all I'd gone through those binders that day for sure, or at least a couple of them. It takes quite a while to go through all that. But we'll watch it real quick, and then we'll dive into why and how I wrote this book. Come on, Acta Wi-Fi. Archive reflection time. Just spent another 5-6 hours in the archives of the Trussville Public Library. Spent all of that time just combing through 8 binders about the Cahaba Project. Each binder marked a specific year, 1936 through 1943. And just some off-the-cuff observations, reflections of just how important, just how historical, just how special this place really is. These binders are mostly invoices and descriptions and work to be done and wages to be paid by the government to folks seeking relief from the Great Depression. It's truly unbelievable to really go through it. Yes, on the whole, most of it is glory, invoices and stuff like that. Aren't a whole lot of fun, but they tell a story. And they tell a story of how important this place was at the time to a lot of people. A lot of people who probably didn't end up living here. They needed to work, and the work was done really, really well. It's why after the Cahaba Project opened in 1938, why it's still the most historically, aesthetically intact government homestead project, certainly in the state, probably in the entire country. Hear that again. Probably the most historically, aesthetically intact homestead project in the entire country. What we have here is important, should be treated as such. And I was going through as it started to approach the years 1939. There was a lot about what's now Heritage Hall, then a cooperative store. And the minute details that were gone over again and again before that project could be completed. And then 1940, repainting these houses. They've been open for 2 years. They're going through it, repainting. More painting throughout 1941 through 1943 with the homes, the garages, other buildings around here with certain specifications. The government, for all their oversight back then and now, especially making sure that the jobs were done right. I mean, down to how keyholes should be addressed and painted. I don't know, just wanted to offer some reflection there. In the last 2 pages of the binder of 1943, it goes on to very quickly mention the war, World War II, and how to prepare for certain events. Just crazy how much went into this place, sandwiched between the Great Depression and World War II. And this is what we got out of it. So, I don't know, maybe this means nothing to you, but the more and more I read about it, the more and more interested I am, and the more inspired. All right, y'all. All right. Sorry I had to put y'all through that. All that wind in January. It might not have been clear from that video, but it was freezing. And I shook a little bit. I don't know. I thought something like that was important. That even the minute details, even the boring stuff, even the invoices, it all tells a story. So, getting into why I wrote the book. Really, I mean, you've got the bullet points. Those are all pretty obvious to everybody in this room. Joining the Trussville Historical Board when we moved back to Trussville, then the Historical Society. We created the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation in 2021. And then just, being a sponge, especially in this building, learning about this local history, and what most of us in this room do is trying to advance the importance of that local history throughout Trussville. I think we're doing a good job. Selfishly and personally, why I wrote the book, a lot of it was born out of embarrassment from a book that I have available here today. In 2014, I published Trussville, Alabama, A Brief History. And that at the time, that publication or that publishing company wanted the highlights, right? They wanted just broad brush, a little bit about this, a little bit about churches, a little bit about schools. So I didn't get to dive in as much as I wanted to on certain topics. It's why the book is like 140 pages. But I remember going on Talk of Alabama on ABC 3340 to talk about that book. And one of the questions they asked me was, what was the most interesting thing you found in your research? And this is where my embarrassment comes in. All I talked about was the moving of the Civitan Bridge from Happy Hollow to where we know it in Civitan Park, completely overlooking this New Deal WPA community. It's one of 8 in Alabama. It's one of 100 in the country. And I talked about a bridge. So I felt like I'd buried the lead. As I got involved with the Trussville Historical Board, Historical Society, and CHHF, I learned just how key this history here is. And I knew things had been published about it. I wrote a little bit about it. Earl and Carol Massey had written about it. And so I was like, I want to do something that is the most in-depth thing that's been done, because there is not necessarily in this room, but certainly in this community as a whole, Trussville, y'all have heard people say certain things about the Cahaba Project that just aren't true. If they came through this building once, they would learn better. some people refuse to learn, and they need to learn it. So that was a part of why I wrote this book. How I wrote the book. Really, for me, it started really in earnest in 2022. We founded CHHF in early 2021. And that next year, you can ask my wife, was full of research, uh, constantly researching, constantly finding old newspaper articles, images, going through books that have been written, talking to people. So I just kind of dove into that as part of our education mindset as an organization. And then after about a year of doing that in 2022, I was like, I've gotten to meet so many people who either still live here or had lived here and had moved on. I knew the issues Trussville was facing from a city government standpoint of what do we do about the project? Can we protect it? Should we protect it? Should we just let it go by the wayside? And there are ways they can protect it. We've given them to them. So I felt like I had something that was, I could go into the definitive history. I could go into the meat of the book, which is your nostalgia. That's the heritage section of the book. People talking about their memories, things that were created back in the certainly in the late 30s, but especially after World War II. When you get into the 40s and the 50s, and things were a lot better. Memories people had then, and then, like I said, conflict. Especially since about 2017, when some of these first demolitions really started, and really since then, it's kind of been ongoing since then. Kind of, what does this place mean? What should it mean? Why is it important to protect what we have that can be protected? And if it can't be protected, if a house does need to come down, how do we build back so that we don't have a hodgepodge? I live in Stockton. If I want to knock my house down and build a log cabin, they're going to run me out of Stockton. Why is it different here? Why is the most historic resource that Trussville has, why is it treated by some, why is it treated as if it's a blank canvas? Personally, and I probably shouldn't say it in a book talk, but I think that's BS. It is not a blank canvas. These are not just, they're just old homes. Well, they're standing nearly 90 years later, so they must have been built well. I mean, how many guys does it take to paint that door frame, really? How many guys are painting that door frame in 2025? One. There's 3 guys standing there. I've heard it time and time again, my house was built like a tank. I've heard it time and time again, I've never had a roof leak from a roof from 1938. So it's not a blank canvas. They were built well. As long as they are taken care of, they will take care of you. So, why the Model City is the title. It was referenced routinely early on. You see some of these images up here. In the above images, the screenshot of text on the left, that comes from the National Register of Historic Places form from 2006. There's a description in there. It's highlighted right there. Was a model city for dwellers with common backgrounds and ideals. That's super recent, obviously, but it goes back much further. The news story on the right from 1940, y'all recognize on the top there, that's the building we are in right now, and that is a picture of it in 1940. Looks pretty much the same. Large spread of photos and an article ran stating that the Cahaba Project was a model community designed to enable the middle class to raise its standard of living in the wake of the Great Depression. Initially, this area was going to be a resettlement project like many others. Farmland, modest house, slag from the left behind iron furnace that sat right out here made that a problem. Hard to farm land filled with iron ore and slag. Government pretty much pivoted on the project, wanted to show a model suburban community and the dawning of a fruitful America. So many of you in this room know Bob Davis, lives down here on West Mall. he likes to say it a lot, that this project here was built with no economy of labor. That's what he likes to say. They use the best materials, and it's why we still have it today. So, you know, that's why I wanted to call it the model city. It's been referenced really since the late 30s, early 40s. The government called it, or people called this the government's country club. It was built different. It was built in a much better way. So that's why I wanted to call it the model city. And that subtitle, History, Heritage, and the Hereafter, I love alliteration, of the Resettlement Administration's crown jewel, I wanted that to be a part of it as well, to show that this place, it's not just one of 8 in Alabama. It's not just one of 100 in the country. It pretty much stands alone. It was their crown jewel. And I want that to catch on around here. And anybody who reads this book or learns about the Cahaba Project, learns about Trussville that doesn't live here, I want them to know that we have something here that is not just historic to Trussville or Jefferson County. It's not just historic to Alabama, but it is historic across all 50 United States. I can't say it enough, and I haven't said it enough over the last 4 years. So, how long did it take? 2021, like I said, a lot of research in this building, the library next door, a lot of research at home, as you can tell, where I've pretty much passed out in front of my computer doing research. All that strewn across. We got newspaper articles. We got the dog wanting a walk that he's not going to get because who knows what time this is. This is probably 11 o'clock at night. 2022, a lot of phone calls late into the night. Zach Gabert stayed on the phone with me for 3.5 hours. He's 91 years old right now. So at the time when we talked, he was 88, and he was on Eastern time. He's in Georgia. And we had a phone call at 8 p.m. I got off the phone sometime after 11. So it was after midnight for him. And he just, if you know Zach, he loves to talk, but his memory is sharp, and he gave me a lot of good stuff. 2023, a lot more of the same. Phone calls, research. 2024, kind of some additional research and a whole lot of writing in 2024. 2025 this year, just some final touches, just a couple interviews that I needed to follow up on, a whole lot of writing down the stretch, and mostly editing. One of the last things, why July 8th for the release date? I think probably a lot of books are probably released just, I don't know what goes into picking a release date. I don't know if it's random. I don't know if people pick it for a reason, if there's a day of the week that works best or what. But as I started going through stuff, I wanted, especially y'all in this room, as you could imagine, I even wanted the release date to tell a story. And that article you're looking at is from July 8th, 1936. Everyone in this room has seen that article. Y'all have seen it in here. We've talked about it. And I talked about kind of what was and what was becoming. And this article that ran it was the Birmingham Post. It was always kind of the article that I always came back to. I share it on all of our social media, the historical board, CHHF. I share it on July 8th every year. Not a whole lot to this article that's like people being quoted. It's just chunks of information about here's what the Resettlement Administration is planning to do here. And it showed what was. There's a house that was. And up top, here's what it's going to become. And so, you've got the title there, Living in the Suburbs, Working in Town, Trussville Homesteads to offer, quote, more abundant life. So there were 2 sections of that article that really stood out to me that made the most sense. The first was the lead. Just a once dead, deserted ironworkers village near Trussville gave promise of new and abundant life today. Boom, that pretty much tells it. And then about midway through the article, the Resettlement Administration's aim at Trussville were a total of 400 houses are to be built. We got 287. will be to provide facilities for social improvement and cultural advancement. Community center will have a library, auditorium, school, stores, and recreational equipment, including tennis, volleyball, and basketball courts, baseball diamond, and swimming pool. Little Cahaba River, which crosses the tract, will be dammed up to create a small lake for boating and fishing. So it was obviously about the homes, about the work, but it was so much about building community as well. And that for that reason, that's always stood out to me. And I just thought that kind of honoring that start, right when they had kind of started construction, lands being cleared, houses are starting to be built, that kind of thing, that was a good day to pick, and I'll be able to tell that story going forward. So finally, just then and now, y'all all know that view. It's straight out right here, 100 North Mall. The Dooley's house. That's crazy to look at, that you've got a picture from 1940, and I think I took that picture maybe in 2023, maybe something like that. Tried to get the same angle, and not a whole lot has changed. And I included that quote from FDR. I've also got printed as the book begins. This generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny. I went to Warm Springs, Georgia, where FDR, where most of you know, he went to seek treatment for his polio before and during his presidency. I got a personal tour of his little white house there, where he did a lot of his work. I saw the chair that he slumped over in, saw the bed that he died in. It's all in there. There's a chapter on it in the book. I was struggling because as I started writing the history section of this, it starts in about, I guess the book picks up really 1933, something like that. And it goes through incorporation of Trussville as a town in 1947. The only year chronologically that I struggled with was 1945, because everybody's written about the bombs being dropped. Everybody's written about, Hitler and World War II. I didn't want to write about that. You all know that story. And so I was like, I've got to find a way to fill this. So one weekend, I just drove to Warm Springs, Georgia, and asked Warm Springs, Georgia, tell me a story. And I will try to tell it through the lens of this place. So that quote, that's something that FDR spoke in 1936 at the Democratic National Convention. It symbolized his vision of a collective responsibility for Americans to confront the challenges of economic inequalities and issues, and to shape an American future rooted in hope and purpose. He died 9 years later, 1945, 2 years before Trussville and the Cahaba Project merged to form one town, the city we know today. Without the Cahaba Project, we don't have Trussville as we know it today. So his words about destiny for that generation of Americans became incredibly accurate during the late 40s, 1950s, and beyond.